is Scott back with the Becker Private Equity Podcast, and today's topic is crazy Republicans in the national debt. So one of the things you have out there that is fascinating is this concept that some of the Republican deficit fighters are crazy and unhinged and just can't reach a deal with the Democrats. And here's the counter to that. You could call them crazy Republicans in the national debt, but here's the reality. We're now spending $1 trillion a year on debt, on interest payments. This is out of a budget that we spent last year of about $6 trillion a year on tax receipts of only about $4.3 trillion a year. So once you get to a spot where your debt is taking up a huge percentage of your national expenditures, something has to give. At some point, we got to start spending on social programs, or we have to reduce our debt, or we have to do something, or at the end of the day, we're going to use up so much of our national budget on debt that's a disaster. Imagine if your household, if you spent $200,000 a year, and about $30,000 of that was $35,000 of that was spent on debt, or worse, $100,000 a year or $50,000 a year, and you're spending almost $10,000 or $20,000 a year on debt. That's a disaster on interest payments. Not even paying down the debt, just on interest payments. So this is truly a disaster. And so when people call them crazy Republicans, I'm half insane myself, but there are days when I think they're absolutely right to take on the national debt and view it as a national catastrophe. I'm a believer that debt kills families, nations, companies, and that too much debt is a disaster. Italy is a great example of this. Italy is getting killed right now in the stock market because they've massively overdone their debt. And their stock market is down about 35% this year. Well, we're up about 20% this year. The Nasdaq's up 28% or so. S&P's up 14% or so. But what a national debacle this debt is becoming, what a national debacle it is for Italy. It was a warning sign for the rest of us that we got to get this debt under control. Thank you for listening. And ultimately, it's going to take a little bit of raising taxes, a little bit of lowering spending, and we could do it. But we have to do it soon before it comes to total debacle. Thank you for listening to the Becker Private Equity Podcast. If you listen to this all the way through and note, either the theme of this podcast or whatever you want to note, text me at 773-766-5322. We'll add to the Becker debt by sending you a $100 Amazon gift certificate, but you have to be the first one. You have to do it today, and you can't be someone who's done it recently if you want to claim the $100 gift certificate. Thank you for listening to the Becker Private Equity Podcast.